Hi,
Hello,
I'm Julian.
I'm Cowboy Tom.
We are Team Binge. We are here to talk about Outer Range Season 2, Episode 2. This episode is called Traces to Somewhere. And Tom, when you watched this, you sent me a message saying it was cuckoo bananas, I believe was your
That's the
quote.
quote. Uh-huh.
And I would argue that every episode of this show is a little bit cuckoo and a little bit bananas. I enjoyed this one. I don't know. I know this show is buried deep in a hole in a West pasture, but I enjoy this show. I don't know what else to say other than it's sad that someone put this much effort into something and it's just going to, pass the world by. I wonder if maybe someday, years from now, when someone comes through the hole, this show will become popular again. I don't
I
know.
think that's the sentiment that I have for like 1899, like another pod that we did. Like it's just a very fascinating, interesting show that had one season, left on a super cool cliffhanger, and then canceled from Netflix. So another big bummer. And again, very, very bummed to know that we are going to probably only have this one season. It's been canceled. Who knows? Maybe it gets picked up elsewhere. We'll see.
Yeah, my argument would be like right now we're watching Presumed Innocent on Apple, which is a perfectly serviceable like legal drama and it's got Jake Gyllenhaal, but it's like why is that show popular? Or maybe I guess I don't know that it is. I feel like people are having conversations about it. Why is that show popular and this show that has buffaloes and west pasture holes, and this one has murder and whodunits in it. So I don't know. I feel like they're equal. Josh Brolin and Gyllenhaal are of equal A-list status, right? I think.
Yeah, get back to Scarf, man.
Sure, they both stole a scarf from a buffalo cow. I don't know. Anyways, Tom, what'd you think of this episode?
No, like to me, this episode was just fast. I enjoyed it. It was a lot of
yeah.
fun. We got some great Billy stuff that I'm excited to dive into. But so many things I thought just happened quickly. Like boom, we get this big reveal, and it was just kind of reveal after reveal, and it just the show doesn't slow down to kind of maybe build out some of these characters or some of these little twists. They just kind of came fast and loose, but I'm okay with it because it's clearly they have a more high level story they're trying to tell with this season, and they're not kind of wasting time with some of these characters in their spots right now. So it was quick, it was fast paced, but I'm with you, man. I still dug it.
In terms of them covering all those things quickly, do you think they had the sense that they weren't getting a third season? Like, do you feel like we're going to close the story out at the end of this season in a way that, sometimes shows do it where it leaves it open for a third season, but they cover most of the important stuff? Or are we just going to have a big letdown when we get to the end of this?
Yeah, I mean, it's a fair question. I mean, we had a lot of that in the first season about jumping forward in time and seeing like quick little snippets of that. So clearly they had something in mind. I can't imagine you would throw that stuff out without some general sense of direction. And I do feel like this is probably a show on the chopping block. When we got a second season, we were very excited about it. So maybe they did have that in the back of their mind. But I don't know going into this. We talked about in the first pod that the showrunner for the first season was like a Juilliard playwright, and he's not necessarily leading the show this time around. Like they got more seasoned like TV show folks to run it. So I would have imagined the hope would have been they would have had maybe more arcs to do, maybe 2 more seasons after this. So I would still suspect that we're probably going to get some cliffhanger-y type stuff and maybe feel a little bit bummed. But I don't know. We'll see.
Sure. Now, do you think the playwright, is no longer doing the show because they did not like him, or is it because he's putting all of his efforts into the Peter Pan Captain Hook legal drama, stage play off drama, or off Broadway play that he wrote about Jareth, cute story that you saw a little bit in Arrested Development?
You're a crook, Captain Hook, and you're gonna get the hook
Book.
of the pirate. Oh, sorry.
You're going to throw the book at the pirate. I was going to join in, but I don't sing. So I appreciate your bravery, Tom. You are as brave as that alleged murderer, Captain Hook. Anyways, a maritime lawyer, Jareth, cute story. Look him up, folks. All right, let's dive into this one. We're going to take it beat by sweet, sweet beat. And this starts with a conversation with I'm a little bit worried about the marriage of Cece and Royal. Just a little bit. There seems to be a lot of strain and stress They're riding around. He's like, there used to be a hole here. And she's like, I hear your words, but there is no hole, and I do not believe you. But this leads to him finding I'm going to call it a rock syringe, right? That's probably...
Some sort of geologist toy. I mean, these scientists are not very good at covering their tracks, right? Like, leaving 3 distinct holes, you probably just could have kicked some dirt over it to cover those, and then leaving an actual, like, sample vial. Like, how many were they taking? We only saw 3 holes. Why would you leave one? It's silly.
I don't know. I think scientists are good at science and not good at crime, unless they're that one lady in the turtleneck that told us blood tests could be fast. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's the University of Wyoming, I'm assuming, is the culprit here.
Yeah, I think we met him briefly in last season. So he goes back and sees that same scientist, geologist, whatever it was. Because I think Tillerson had like a card for the specific geology lab or whatever.
Yeah, this episode, there's a lot of like bad church people and there's a lot of bad science people. So you got to pick your side. I know which side I'm on. We'll get to it later. All right, we have Perry, who's going by Ben Younger. Tom, if I gave you, I don't know, 15 seconds to make up your fake future or past name, have you given this some thought? And please don't say Tom Younger, because that would be terrible.
It's
ad-lib.
Bob, a baby eats a boy.
Okay. Got it. That's great. Okay. Is that from a commercial? Is that what that's
from? That was
from?
like the 1-800-COLLECT commercials where like you get to say your name and then like the reason you're calling or something.
Oh.
And he does that to like the dad, and the dad's like, hey, it was Bob. They had a baby. It's a boy.
Incredible. Incredible. That would be a struggle to say. And honestly, I think Wabang, Wyoming, they would probably kick you out of town because they would be concerned with whatever nationality Had a Baby It's a Boy is. But
all right, go. You got 5 seconds. What's your name?
Probably like Bruce Thunder, you know? I don't know.
That was your dancing name.
Cowboy. That is the name I danced under, both in middle school and high school, and in junior college. So, so Perry is meeting with young Royal, and this is them at the bar, right? There's one bar in this town, and they all seem to run into each other there, which is fine. And Perry's like, it feels like young Royal is having breakfast with a beer, which I thought was a strong move from a guy like Royal, or Bruce Thunder would also do something like that.
Yeah.
But Sad Sack Perry is immediately like, I'm sad. My name is Sad Sack Ben Younger, and I'm looking for my wife. And Royal's like, yep, women tend to run around on you. Like, he's just not very supportive of his firstborn son. But it's tough to... Sad Sack Perry. It's just so sad sacky. I don't know. There's something about him that I'm starting to lose any compassion for him because he just mopes around all the time. And then, Tom, we've talked about this before. There's certain times in shows where people just like... And this show does it quite a bit, where they're just like, hey, I have all these cards. I've never played poker before. Here are all my cards. Are my cards good? By the way, I'm your son, and I came through the same hole you came through.
Right.
I don't know. I felt that was a quick reveal. But to your point, everything moves fast.
Yeah, and this was my point. Like, in another show, if they had more time to like draw this out, you figured he would have, I don't know, played around with this new world he's kind of found himself in. But no, he immediately goes to, hey, I fell to the same hole, knowing that Royal would believe him because obviously he came from a hole, and how else would somebody else know this? So I appreciate the show just wasting no time and going for it. But my biggest question here is like what does this mean for like the general like causality of time travel here, right? Like, I don't want to get too far into this. I'm okay with it being like generic, but does our present day Royal, Josh Brolin, does he know that he ran into Ben Younger, like a younger Perry? Like, if he had this conversation back then, how does Royal not know that this was going to happen as like an older Royal? Was he, because it doesn't like seem like he was trying to do anything in season 1 to prevent Perry from going in. Like, he knew Perry was going to go in. So like, I like the idea of it time traveling. I like him like confronting Royal here, but I do feel like it kind of plays around with some of the the time traveliness, the timey-wiminess, if you will.
Yeah, see, Attababy's our sound editor guy in the booth. Attababy, will you put those air horn things, that sound right now? Because Tom, yeah, that's the one. Tom just hit the timey-wimey button. And he started talking about timey-wimey stuff, and my eyes glazed over, and I got super confused. He said something.
I said causality.
He said causality, and I was like, what is going on? I pulled the good book down, and I started looking for where causality was in Genesis, and I understand what you're asking. I hope the show has Royal turn to the camera at one point and be like, hey, do you remember when we were younger and I met Ben younger, and then just stares into the camera, and we realize that, yes, there is a time loop. But to answer your question, we see some people in old-timey photos, so that clearly happens, right? Mm-hmm. But Royal in modern time or real time should now have a memory of Ben younger, but exactly. I don't think he will. Mm-hmm. So, all in all, here's how dumb I am, Tom. When Perry was like, I came through the same hole you came through, I was like, oh no, that's the wrong Royal. The older Royal went through the hole. And then I had to remember that Royal went through the hole when he was a little boy. And Twice. So I got real confused. So, yeah, sad sack Perry strikes again. Tom, I don't have any answers for the timey-wimey stuff. If you want answers for timey-wimey, watch Dark. You know, that's where we point all of our people to. Speaking of Dark, Cece has taken Autumn to church, which leads to, obviously, church people just being the worst, which I've said this before. I really hate the shorthand of church people. They're like, listen, we need someone to be like disowning and hypocritical, and they're like, oh, you ever been to church? And the writer's like, oh yeah, good point, we'll just make them all to be church people. And it's just like, we're mostly hypocritical, but sometimes we're not that bad. Like, that would be my argument for us church people. But
the big open whispers and stuff like they were doing actively during the church session, whatever, seemed a bit much. But I do appreciate Autumn like essentially yelling at everybody and calling them like, hey, don't be a-holes. I think that's just general good life advice. So
yes, it's also in the good book. Once again, the big
Thou shalt not be an a-hole.
Yeah, the big JC said it during the Sermon on the Mount.
That was on the third tablet until Moses dropped it. Listen, then it was just 10 commandments.
Here's what's funny about when you're in church and someone is talking and you're like, it's really tough to, like in a theater, you can be like, hey bro, shut up. But when you're in church, you can't turn to someone and be like, hey, shut up. I'm trying to listen to this message about love and forgiveness. It just doesn't go over well.
Yeah. You ever throw the book at somebody?
No.
That's not a thing?
Not at Lies of the Blind Attorney. No, I have not thrown the book. I don't know if you meant for that to be an arrested joke, but if you did, sir, you get all of the internet points tonight. All right.
Picking it up.
Let's leave. Oh, let's leave church and go to the hospital. Hospitals are great places.
Let's leave church and go to the hospital. Transition king right here.
Who wants to take me to the hospital? All right, so we go to the hospital. We've got the Tillersons. And is he just singing? Every time we see Wayne, is he singing to... It just feels like he sings so much to Billy, and it's awesome.
Yeah, I didn't clock it. He's like hovering over the bed. What I did clock was... is it Luke? What's the other kid's name that's still with us here?
Luke, okay. And Billy.
He's sitting in the chair just hanging out, and there couldn't be a more prominent Dr. Pepper can just sitting right there on the table. So,
you think Big Dr. Pepper? Oh, is this not Smallville? Is this Pepperville or whatever it is from the Dr. Pepper commercials?
It might be.
I did not clock Dr. Pepper. Tom, how do you feel about Dr. Pepper? You feel
too many flavors.
Yeah,
too many flavors.
You seem like a Mr. Pibb guy.
Yeah, 12 too many.
12 too many.
Dr. Slice, that was the bee's knees. Oh. Like Dr. Pepper, but it had like a hint of like cherry. That was good.
Yeah. My favorite was when Coca-Cola still had cocaine in it. And that was my favorite soda.
Agreed.
Go down to the soda shop and get yourself some arsenic and cocaine Coca-Cola.
Some lead paint.
Yep. And then go to church. All right. So Ex Mrs. Tillerson shows up, and I forgot what a hurricane this woman is. she comes in. She's super terrible to Luke. She's terrible to Wayne. Everybody loves Billy.
Yeah.
Tom, coming from you and I both have siblings. In fact, we both come from families of all boys. I don't think I'm revealing any state secrets there. Neither of us were the favorite in our family, clearly.
No.
If you're the favorite child, you don't become a podcaster. That's just not what happens.
You have successful careers.
Yeah. When you feel love as a child, you don't have to go on a microphone once a week and speak nonsense. So
scream into the void that is the internet. Yeah.
Yes, so that random people love you. So why is Billy the favorite son? What is it? The singing voice? Is it the loud outfits? What is it? Why is Billy? Is it just because he's the youngest? Why do we love Billy so much?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I guess I don't really understand the not hatred, but like the disdain for Luke. He seems to be doing everything he can to try to like keep this family together and be very like straight-laced and try to make good financial decisions for the family. But I think the family's just all the cuckoo. So Billy's obviously a little cuckoo. The mom and dad are a little cuckoo. So they lean towards the cuckoo clock as opposed to the happy owl that is Luke.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think because like Wayne is, he is a. I was gonna say loose handle, but that's not the right term. He is a
loose cannon.
Loose cannon. That's the
flies
one.
off the handle.
The flies off the handle, and then you hit the loose cannon, and they both go off. And I think Mrs. X Tillerson is a little bit. So maybe our boy Luke is just too like straight laced and too much of, I guess, I don't know, a people pleaser, and so it bothers both of them. I just find it so funny that this family dynamic is we love this guy that sings and wears red cowboy outfits, which we will get to in a moment.
Oh, so excited to talk about that. I wonder if, like, essentially the whole family has been exposed to this black stuff and now, but Luke hasn't. Because now Luke has touched it to when he was trying to, like, dig it out, and now he's seemingly kind of going a little bit off the rocker. So maybe the family has been exposed in some form or fashion. We know Wayne was. We know Billy has been now, but maybe he was exposed to it when he was younger.
So you think, yeah, Billy probably, while he was nursing, got a little bit of it. They obviously did not nurse Luke because they hated him even from a young baby.
That makes sense. Formula fed. Mm-hmm.
Yep, he's formula. And so, everyone else in the family is just ripping lines of black space time. So that makes sense. Okay, I'm with you. Speaking of people that aren't with us, Joy's family still searching for Joy. Talks about Frank's land, which is where she followed the black goo trail into a cave, I believe. And Deputy Matt, he's doing a phenomenal job. I honestly, he's gonna get, if Joy doesn't come back, he's gonna become the sheriff, because this guy is. He's putting together search parties. He's, yelling at people. He's just, he looks great in uniform. I think I'd vote for Deputy Matt. In this upcoming election, I will be writing in Deputy Matt for probably president, if I'm being honest.
No, that's fair. I mean, Joy did have a really bad debate, and people are really talking about how, age might be an issue. So I think maybe we should move to Deputy Matt next in line.
You made it too real. Joy is in a teepee, which looks lovely, very roomy. This was like in Harry Potter where they walk into the tent. It's got so much room. I was like, oh, have I been doing this housing thing wrong? That teepee looks, those vaulted ceilings. I mean, so much natural light. Where do I get one? So this other lady, her name, I'm going to call her Falling Star because I believe that's what she says her name is. She's also a time traveler, a hard-rockin' 1970s time traveler named Falling Star.
Yeah, this was, again, just great because they're wasting no time and they're just getting right into it. But I like how she has to, like, essentially hide her, like, Zeppelin tattoo. But this was, again, I feel like they're moving so quickly through Joy's story. If we had more seasons and we knew they didn't cancel this one, I would maybe be a little bit more upset that they jumped into this so quickly. Like, Joy had no time to try to figure out what's going on in this time and whatever else. Like, she immediately gets an ally that's kind of helping her out. But I do like this concept of somebody else being lost in time, and trying to kind of guide her through acceptance of this new reality.
Right, and we get kind of the hopelessness of Joy's story in this episode of like, hey, you're not going back. Like, there's not going to be another hole. To the point where, and I know I'm skipping ahead, she throws a lithium battery into a fire, which seems like a terrible idea, unless you want to become the, I don't know, sorcerer of the tribe. Although you really only have that trick once. They're like, hey, do that smoke thing where everything blows up, and you're like, does anyone have a phone? May I borrow a phone?
Any iPhone will do.
Yeah, any iPhone will do. Step right up. Any iPhone will do. Honestly, so once again, to stick with Joy's storyline, her being in this environment, having a cell phone, Nate Bargatze, who you know I love, has a bit about, he's like, he talks about how like he doesn't know how things work, and so if he did go like into the past, and he's like, listen, you're going to be able to talk to people on phones or like on these devices in your pocket, and the people would be like, oh, how? He'd be like, I'm butchering the joke, but it's essentially like, we have all this technology, but if you went back, you would be in a worse spot because honestly, you wouldn't be able to explain how any of the technology works. Anyways, that's what I think about when I think of Joy. And if I was stuck in this situation, how I would try to describe, I don't know, I would try to describe to them how, listen, we used to have cable television and the bundles got so big and so expensive. And then this place sends DVDs to your house, and then they started streaming it. And that's probably about when they nailed me to a stake and set me on fire or something.
Yeah, we had to cut the cord. You had to literally cut a cord. Well, no, not literally cut a cord, metaphorical, but
yes. Speaking of cutting the cord, they would have killed me.
We're so done with New Year, New You. This year, it's more you on Bumble. More of you shamelessly sending playlists, especially that one filled with show tunes. More of you finding Geminis because you know you always like them. More of you dating with intention because you know what you want. And you know what? We love that for you. Someone else will too. Be more you this year and find them on Bumble.
We've got probably, I'm assuming this scene will win some sort of Emmy Award or be nominated. We have Rhett shirtless fixing a truck. Him and Marie are on their way to Whitefish. I thought this was, just the raw, don't say that word, Julian, the raw masculinity of Rhett fixing that truck, which I thought the truck was working fine. What are we still working on here? Is he just trying to get that room for free? What's happening here?
I don't. Yeah, I mean, we do get the sweet rodeo tattoo that he has, like kind of on his chest. I appreciate that. But we get this weird, seemingly played for comedy, where like the cat hotel owner is like gawking at him and kind of giving him like side eye and stuff. Like it was kind of weird and seemed a bit out of place. No, it was funny.
I agree. I was in the cat hotel owner's pocket. I was also gawking. And Tom, I'm surprised. So when you turned 13 and became a man, you did not get a rodeo chest tattoo like the rest of us?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Did not realize that you did not go through the masculine ritual of entering manhood with a rodeo tattoo. But good for you.
Still working on it.
Yes, excellent. Well,
it's never too late.
Never too late. I just watched Memento. I feel qualified to give you a rodeo tattoo based on
Speaking of timey-wimey.
Yeah, there you go. Ooh. Yeah, I wonder if Christopher Nolan sent in his notes for this show.
Ooh, that'd be fun.
Yes, it would have been. Speaking of Christopher Nolan, Cece and Adam are hanging out, and we're having some chats about childhood. I could have spent this whole episode in the truck with these two. Like, just trying to figure each other out. And I feel like it was pretty surface level, and the show was just trying to lay some Easter eggs, but I wanted more out of, like, these two should be... Cece should be trying to figure out if Autumn is Amy, and then Autumn should be trying to figure out whether or not Cece's her grandmother. And I wanted us to spend more in the truck together with these two because I don't feel like we got as much as we should have. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I agree. I feel like the scenes they had together, which we had quite a few throughout the episode, were very quick. So we didn't get a whole lot of like deep, meaningful conversation. I think in this part, she makes mention that her mom put her on these like psychosis drugs that she's been taking ever since she was 10. So I'm wondering if essentially that's like the start of the memory loss, or that's helping keep her from remembering what happened before 9. Because again, we know Amy's going to have maybe some sort of traumatic event or fall in the hole, or like something's going to happen to Amy, assuming that Amy is Autumn, to trigger this. So I thought it was interesting that she said she got put on these drugs at the age of 10.
What is our official stance? Is our official stance that Amy is
It's
Autumn?
gotta be. Yeah, I feel like it'd just be so silly not to, or such a big MacGuffin. I feel like it was such a reveal in season 1. It'd be not as satisfying if it wasn't. But I don't know. Maybe they could do a satisfying twist that still is interesting enough.
I wanted the conversation where Autumn was like, Gam Gam, did you fall in love with Papa because of his biceps or his handlebar mustache?
Yeah,
what was it
mustache.
that you first noticed? Oh, I mean, those... Listen, that shirt is barely containing those pythons, as you like to call them. And by
Yeah,
that
that
I
face
mean...
is barely containing that mustache.
That's true. They both could use a trimming. Royal goes to science place. That's what I call it, the science place. He's like, oh, so this is where all the science happens? And they're like, yes, we're sciencers. And he accosts the sciencer, and she's like,
Sciencer.
yes, that's what they're called, Tom. And she's like, oh, we think the substance is... I don't know. I was like... Royal brought a bullet. I mean, there's a lot happening in this scene, which I felt like it was rushed, but I see where Royal is upset. Someone came on his land and shot science bullets into his ground, I'm assuming.
I mean, I had to pause when Royal gave that line. He's like, try not to speak Chinese to a Swedish pig. I don't know what it means, but it sounded really funny, and I loved the delivery from Brolin.
He offended cultures from multiple parts of the globe with that one, which was lovely.
But, like, we talked about the scientist being a little bit silly and leaving all these things behind, but she's apparently fantastic at science. Figuring out that there's, like, a river of time flowing underneath the land. Figures this all out very, very, very quickly, which, again, I'm okay with, but... the show is moving very fast.
A river of time flowing under the land sounds like a kid's song that like had hand motions that Barney taught us as a kid. And it's like, and the river of time flows under the land. And you've got to do all the, look at us singing tonight. So good. So good to be back.
You did it.
Listen, he puts the bullet on the counter, and all I could think about is there's an episode in Justified, which I know you couldn't watch, but all of us great Americans love, where Timothy Olyphant, Raylan Givens, gives someone a bullet, or he tosses someone a bullet, and he says, the next one's coming faster, and it's just the greatest of lines. And what's funny about that show is there's a scene where someone goes, did you toss him a bullet and say the next one's coming faster? And Givens is like kind of embarrassed and he's like, yeah, like it's that self-aware of a show.
Right.
So cannot recommend Justified enough. But you'll never watch it because you hate marshals.
Listen, I watched Raylan Givens in the Fallout show that he was on, where he kind of plays like a, I don't know, burn guy that had like no nose.
Nope. That's not
same
Raylan
thing.
Givens. That's Raylan Givens' nemesis, who is Boyd Crowder. Good man. Walt Goggins, you're thinking of.
Yes, the actor.
Anyways, Tom, 10 or over, how many times have you walked into a room, put a bullet on a counter, and said something to someone and walked out?
Not enough. I
Not-
guess. I mean, this is
Not enough.
I mean, this is
If I
essentially
think back
his
to
mic
my
drop,
childhood, yes, this is his mic drop.
Okay.
Oh, man. I love the idea of you going back in memories and being like, I really should have had a bullet on me that I could have put on the counter and been like,
Right? They're all Nerf darts.
yeah. When that doctor told you had a hernia and couldn't go play Pop Warner, and you put that bullet on and you were like, excuse me, sir. All right, let's move on, Tom. The Perry and Royal conversation is happening. I think. Oh, this is where they're waiting for this group of tough cowboy riders that are all dressed in more modern clothes than what they should have been show up. Perry calls Royal dad, and he's so quick to say not yet. It would have been better had he been like, not yet, not ever, you sad sack of a human. But unfortunately, Royal does not completely disown Perry. I do think this is a funny, like, there should be more comedy. Can you imagine meeting your dad at the same age, what you would talk about or how weird that would be?
Yes.
I mean,
yeah, I'd be very cautious to say something that could inevitably end in my not being born.
oh, yes. That's a good point. I
I don't want to fade in a picture.
yeah, I would say something like, hey, remember that time you went for cigarettes and never came back? And then I'd turn and I'd be like, go to nudge him, and he wouldn't be standing there anymore. He would have gone for cigarettes even in this moment. The conversation of does the whole reappear happens in both Joy's conversations and Perry and Royals. So is the river of time flowing always, Tom, or does it just appear at certain times? What are we does the time hole in the West Pasture only appear when you need it to appear? Is that what it is? Is this a faith thing? Like,
Yeah. I don't know. Like Cece's definitely very big on like the having faith and everything, but I don't understand any of the logic yet with the whole. I think we'll get to it maybe in a bit, but the family's talking about how the whole is a part of them, I guess, essentially, where like all these people are time traveling, yet they're running into versions of Royal, and it's all about the Abbott family. And the Tillersons maybe just kind of there for the ride, but everything seems to appear or happen specifically for the Abbotts.
okay, so you think this whole is Abbott centric, like Abbott Elementary, obviously, which is a spinoff of this show about the elementary school that was built on top of this whole.
Great.
Okay. Do you think we are going to get a cleaned up world at the end of this where everything goes back to normal, kind of like Tomb Raider 2, which obviously my favorite movie, we've talked about it several times, where she gets the time pyramid and makes everything goes back to normal and reconnects with her real father, John Voight, which I thought was a real weird choice for the movie to fix a truly bad in-life relationship. Do you think that's going to, like, are we going to go back to normal, or is this world just, as the kids like to say, all jacked up on time from forever?
I mean, I don't think so. The whole starts with Royal accidentally shooting his father. Like, we believe that's the catalyst for everything happening.
Allegedly accidentally. His dad's kind of a jerk at the end of this episode, so part of me thinks maybe he did it for realsies.
Yeah, it was a werewolf until he got over to it, then turned back into the neighbor's dog. But, like, that is the first time I think the whole appears. Like, maybe it appeared earlier for the Abbott family, but what the show has told us, like, that is the first time. So if this would button up to be some sort of cleaned up timeline, and maybe that event doesn't happen based off of what they do and how they can clean it all up, like, maybe he does shoot the deer and that's how it ends. Like, maybe that's what they're writing for. But I don't know if I love that. I like more of the idea of...
You like things messy.
Yeah, they're just trying to figure it out. They're doing the best they can, and for it to like wrap up in a beautiful bow where everything just like essentially it was all like a fever dream. I don't love that as much.
No. It's all happening inside of a snow globe that a kid holds in his hands. Yeah. I'm interested, now that you brought that up, I wonder if a level of like grief has this whole appear, because obviously like a murder happened around the whole in prominent or in like normal time. The whole happened in the 1800s when he allegedly accidentally shot his dad. So I'm interested to know the timing and like what happens in the Abbott families to cause the holes. Also, a mountain disappeared, which we haven't really talked about since, but that's okay.
The stars went all wild. Yeah.
Okay, so Joy meets what was with the what was the group of street toughs, the hot cops that show up here to ride. They're like, oh, Royal, we're here to watch you ride Van Halen or whatever the horse's name is. What was this all about? Was this was a support group for sweet mustaches and tight t-shirts? What was this?
We knew from the first season that Royal was an avid bull rider, so I'm kind of bummed that we didn't actually get to see bull riding because I wanted to see him in his prime. But yeah, I guess this is his bull riding posse, crew, gang. I don't know how the bull riders kind of call them, but it was kind of funny to see them actively pursuing this passion.
Listen, despite owning, cowboy boots and listening to country music, I could not grasp what this group of men all showed up to do, where they're like, hey, Royal, you gonna go ride this horse? I don't know, was he like breaking a horse? Was this, I don't know. This seemed like, and also I'm going to say they're super suspicious of Perry, but honestly, yes. I think these guys all just read his vibe. They're like, oh, who's this sad sack? Why did Royal bring this loser dude into our group? And one of them turned to the other. I don't know if you saw this scene, but one turned to the other one and he's like, I bet this guy's got a wife that's missing and he's going to complain about it. And then the other guy's like, yeah, he's got that look in his eyes. And then Perry wanders over and he's like, my wife's missing. I jumped through a hole. Anyways,
You're so mean to Ben. Ben's trying his best, man.
Oh, I'm sorry. He's like, I'm Perry and my wife's missing. They're like, I thought your name was Ben Younger. And he's like, my name's Ben Younger and my wife's missing. Anyways, whatever. All right. Joy meets Kid Royal. I thought this was interesting and surprising. And
again, like another big moment for me of having a Kid Royal show up again now that she's gone even further back in time. It just, to me, completely continues to center the idea of this is all about the Abbotts and them. Like, for her to be not only thrown back in time, but still be in the time frame that has the Abbott family and specifically Royal alive is interesting. And I can't remember, he was a very young kid, right? So is this 5 years until he's going to shoot his dad?
No, I didn't think it was that far off. And I took this more of as a geography thing. It's like these generations are all just in this area. And so despite the fact that we're in a different time, we're still in the same area. I also kind of think that now that we've seen Royal shoot his dad and his dad is bad at paying his debts, I'm wondering if Royal, as a young boy of 6, isn't a enforcer for the tribe. And so they're like, hey, there's a dude out there isn't paying his debt. We need you to go shoot him. And Royal's like, oh, I think
make it look like an accident.
Yeah, he's like, I know this guy. I'll make it look like an accident. And they're like, great, here's some candy. And he's like, wonderful. That's what I get paid in to shoot people. So
okay, it's a running theory. I like it.
Yeah, write that theory down because I think that's going to be the right one.
Okay.
Rhett and Maria, just. These two could not be in a more different show. They're just like trying to have a romance. Their struggle is vending machines and trucks. Everyone else is dealing with murders and time travel.
Yeah.
And, yeah. And so, of course, they see Perry's truck, which leads him to go into the one bar in town, which seems like a lovely place. And who's there drinking a beer, eating his breakfast, but Royal?
Yeah, I like the kind of parallels to the young Royal sitting in the same exact place in the bar and speaking with one son and now speaking with his other. I like that.
I did like that parallel. I also like when he looked at Rhett and he goes, Ben Younger. Oh, Rhett, my other son. And Rhett's like, who's Ben Younger? And he's like, shut up. And he's like, you don't owe anyone money, do you? Because I'll shoot you. But we find out that Amy's missing, which means this big love affair between Maria and Rhett is not going to... I mean, they had their chance to drive away. Instead, they stayed in the Cat Hotel. So this is really on them. Also, I like that he's like, oh, you should have called. And he's like, I did call. And Rhett's like, oh, yeah, I do have a cell phone. Like, I don't know. This is all insane.
Well, I think... Royal even kind of says, like, I think to the point where he wanted him to leave. He didn't want him to have to come back. Like,
yeah, he gave him the Ben Affleck speech from Good Will Hunting. He's like, every morning I wake up and hope you're gone. And Rhett's like, that's kind of mean, Dad. And Royal's like, oh, I've shot a family member before. Don't make me do it again.
Is that Good Will Hunting or is that Batman, Christopher Nolan Batman's? Doesn't Alfred do
It's
that?
probably all of them, you know. and then Alfred tells a story about a Burma jewel thief that just wants to watch the world burn. I don't know. And then Matt Damon shows up on a planet and he's a real dirtbag and blows up the robot. I don't know. I watched Interstellar recently. I've watched a lot of Christopher Nolan recently. Wait, is this the part in the podcast where we just name Christopher Nolan movies? Because we've done that before,
again.
and I'd love to do it again. All right. Prestige. Okay. Perry's... Royal tells Rhett, he's like, Perry's gone and they're coming after our land. And I was like, okay, didn't see that coming. And this is about the time where my spouse, who once again, more smarter than me, as they like to say, she was like, oh, they put up the land for Perry's bond because Perry is like out on bond or whatever. So they're going to lose the land and all. And I was like, oh yeah, I didn't remember that at all. But obviously I wasn't going to admit that to her because marriage is a competition and you have to win at all times. And you can never show weakness. That's the other thing I've learned.
What at all costs, family motto.
That's right. And we suffer silently. All right. He goes back to the truck and he's like, Maria, I can't leave. And this reminded me of Arrested Development. We're not going camping. We're not going fishing. We're not going camping. Pop has to help this young lady find her dog. That's what this reminded me of. Another broken promise from the rodeo Rhett.
There was a Maria in Arrested, wasn't it? Wasn't that Job's girlfriend at the beginning?
Yes. I think she was Colombian or something. I don't know. That's actually the joke in the show. I'm not being terrible. Let's go to Autumn and Cece, who, once again, quick conversation where we discovered that Autumn's family was very rich and very odd. So maybe she's a Tillerson.
I don't. I mean, again, we know Rebecca is taking young Amy somewhere. She said some sort of special place. I don't know where it's going to be, but the idea that she comes from a rich family and they're odd, yeah, it doesn't seemingly compute with a time traveling Rebecca.
The only rich family that I know that's odd in this show is the Tillersons. So
yeah,
maybe Autumn/Amy gets adopted by the Tillersons for a little while. I don't know how that would work. I'm so confused with the time aspect of this show that none of it makes any sense. Perry, who is Ben Younger, talking to young Royal. Wow, that's a sentence. Admits to killing the Tillerson kid, and that's why he jumped through the hole. And Royal's like, you're hired.
I could use a guy like you.
Yeah, which I guess he finds out that he killed a Tillerson, and this Royal is so angry at the Tillersons because of his unrequited love that he hires Perry on the spot. He's like, Royal's like, I've done a little bit of murdering in my time. I'd love to bring you on as well, sad sack Perry. Also, Royal at no point is like, we named you Perry? He's like, no, Ben Younger's a much better name. We show up at the house, and Cece is... listen, young Cece, I'm not going to say old Cece is super kind, but young Cece is pretty mean. And she's mean to Perry, and she's mean to Royal, but she seems to be overly comfortable with young Wayne Tillerson, and I did not appreciate this at all.
Yeah, this to me, again, another like just boom moment, like the idea of young Wayne being with Cece when we got none of that in the first season. Again, to me, this is like they're throwing just so much at us so quickly. It does seem to get a little bit, I don't know, too cute is the right word, but I like it. I think it's fun, and I'm interested to see where they ultimately go with it.
Part of me is kind of like, if Cece and Wayne united, they would be able to combine West Pasture and West Pasture. And West Pasture and West Pasture would become Central Pasture. And then the other sides would be the East Pastures. So an East Pasture on both sides. I don't really know how cardinal directions work. But I do think they could become the most powerful family in Wabang if they had just gotten married. This is like a Game of Thrones. They both bring their, I'm assuming, dragons. and maybe I'm not watching. I haven't been up on Game of Thrones, but
Yeah.
I'm assuming there's pastures and dragons in Game of Thrones, the new show, Song
they would
of
have done,
Dragons and Flowers, I believe it's called.
Yeah, if only they would have done some more while banging when they were younger.
Oh, wait, Tom. No, we're gonna have to cut that.
Okay.
No, I don't like
Too
it.
much.
Too much. We're gonna keep it in. All right.
Speaking of too much, let's get to Billy.
Let's get to Billy's brain. We're in Billy's brain, and Tom.
Shoot this thing into outer space and shoot nukes at it.
I've
Billy's
never
brain, baby.
Listen, I've never done heroin, but watching Billy's brain while he's in a coma is probably the closest I'll ever get to doing heroin. We've got songs, we've got red suits, we've got autumn, we've got so much love. This is when I assumed you sent me the text that was like, this episode was bonkers. I could watch 30 minutes of Billy's brain, essentially. No wonder he sings. He dreams in color. He dreams in red. He dreams in Can't Find a Better Man. Whatever. It is incredible.
I'm watching this scene and I'm like, oh, these writers, producers definitely listened to our first season podcast and how much we loved Billy singing.
Give
and
us a lot of credit.
ridiculousness of his character. So I'm assuming this was for us. So thank you. But yeah, it was just incredible. They're giving the people what they want. There's like heart graphics coming up about like Autumn and Billy and love. There's like these weird kaleidoscope cuts that's going on. He's singing "Try to Get to You" by Elvis. He's like screaming some of these lines. It's just amazing. And I'm sure there's maybe some symbolism we'll get later while they're both like in these full-on red outfits, because we know later on she wears like the yellow outfit as kind of like the cult-ish kind of thing when Royal jumps forward in time. So I do think it is interesting they're kind of in prominent red jumpsuits, but yeah, just so much fun. And watching this actor sing, I could eat it all up all day.
Tom, they're not in red jumpsuits. They're in red, like, cowboy music suits from the 30s. I don't know. They're incredible. All I could think about was, for Halloween this year, would you and I like to go in matching cowboy outfits so that our wives stay home and don't look at us because of how incredible we look?
Listen, there are pictures of me on the internet where I went for Halloween in recent years as Marty McFly from Back to the Future 3, where he has like the pink frilly thing as he's going as, what is his name? I can't remember who he goes as. Not Calvin Klein in that one. It's Clint Eastwood when he goes back in time. What kind of dumb name is that?
I can't say that is a reference I understand. Is this this is a movie, I'm assuming, about time travel. I keep my time travel to Outer Range and Dark, my friend. Those are my brands.
Go back and watch the Back to the Future series. It's a lot of fun. 3 was great.
Speaking of brands, is the reveal here that he has the tattoo of the Abbott brand on his chest? Is that why we're all clutching our pearls in the hospital room? Is that what happened?
Billy doesn't talk. He just uses the brand as, I guess, a means to say like the Abbotts did this to him. But we saw in the first season, like it's not a brand really. It's I guess it's
tattoo,
the Abbott
right?
brand or logo. No, it was Autumn cutting it like with a knife. Very, very well done circle and like Abbott logo essentially on him. So it was not the Abbotts that, well, I don't know if you want to say Amy is Autumn, you could say an Abbott did this to him. But yeah, the family gets real hot real fast. Yeah.
And then we have some Luke and Mom scheming in the hallway, and he's like, "You just gotta trust me." And she's like, "I'm, 4 vodkas in. I was on a flight." Also, did you see that Dr. Pepper in there? It was definitely spiked with something. Wayne Tillerson is like, "I'm gonna kill Royal," and Luke's like, "Yeah, we should definitely kill Royal." I get the sense that Luke's like, "I'm gonna let my dad kill Royal, and then he's gonna go to prison, and I'm just gonna like take care of all of this." That was kind of how it felt like his scheme was going. But I was also 4 vodkas in because I was thinking about flying. And so I did not understand exactly what was happening. But
I feel like Luke has like drank the Kool-Aid. Like he says, like, we're doing this Dad's way. We're going Old Testament style. Like, and he seems very much into this revenge plot.
Sure.
I don't think he's scheming.
No, well, I thought he agreed with his dad in the room, but once he got into the hallway with his mom, he was like, listen, just go with it. You got to trust me. So
Yeah.
I feel like he's playing Tillerson 2D chess, where everyone else is playing 1D chess.
Yeah, he's playing with the owls. The owls are still talking to him.
Listen, there's a cutscene at some point where owls are burning, and that is the only scene I want to watch from this show. I dream about it in my darkest dreams. All right, we already talked about this a little bit, but we have a cut where Joy is sad, and her battery runs out, and she burns her phone. And I thought that was just a knee-jerk reaction to a problem that, I mean, maybe she could invent electricity. It's not that hard. You just fly a kite and the lightning strikes it, I assume, is what...
Yeah, that's how you charge your phone in old-timey days.
Right. But yeah, this just seemed dangerous. The internet recently fed me a video where a guy dropped a weight on his phone and it blew up in the gym. And I was like, that's incredible. Okay. Back in present time, Martha finds the old picture of Joy. So this goes to your causation thing where... And I don't know if this is to be like, hey, Joy's not coming back. Like, she's going to be there long enough for someone to take a photo of her. Or if this is the show being like, hey, what we do in life echoes through eternity. Which I think I'm quoting Gladiator. But what was the show telling us by finding this picture? What, like...
I mean, I think it's just more of the time traveler stuff and the idea that this picture was always there. Like, maybe Joy could have stumbled across this and seen her in this time period, and maybe that could have prevented something, but it didn't, or she didn't, so maybe it didn't.
Well,
but it does tell us that it's...
Per Back to the Future rules, she would not be in that picture until she walked down that trail and went into the tunnel and went back in time, right? Like, that's when then she, like, fades into that photo. Or is
I think it's the other way around.
been?
It's you bringing something from your time to an old time. Then that photo is going to change because you're changing the events that are going to impact the future. This is the opposite. She is looking at a picture in the present that happened in the past, and Joy was there in the past. But
Listen,
I don't think it's not like Joy's been there for like 30 years or whatever. Like, cameras existed. Like I think a camera could take her picture. Maybe Joy could be stuck there for a month and doesn't have to be there for years and years and years and accept it. I do like the idea of Joy getting with Royal or finding her way home. I hope she does.
Yeah, no, I don't want Joy to be abandoned to the 1800s. It sounds terrible. They don't have modern medicine. But I guess this is also maybe Joy's family, like, then takes this somewhere, and so then more people are in on the timey-wimey aspect of this whole world. Like... Just imagine your kid running up to you with an old photo and being like, look, Dad, you're in this photo. Like, I don't know that I would treat that as gospel. I would kind of be like, oh, yeah, I probably had a relative that looked extremely like me and fought on the wrong side of that war. You know, like something like that.
There's a picture of Nicolas Cage on the internet somewhere where he's like looks like a vampire. So people think Nicolas Cage is actually a vampire, but it's just a guy that looked like him. I mean, essentially that would be what would happen in this picture. Like, oh yeah, that's not possible for Joy to be with my ancestors way back when. So this is just somebody that looks like her and just a descendant. So I don't know what you're going to do to really convince people that it's Joy.
Nick Cage is a vampire? I'm just hearing about this now?
Go look it up.
I gotta do research. He's a real vampire? I kind of knew it, you know? He did that. I mean, he did that one movie, The Rock, where he was clearly a vampire.
Renfield.
All right. We have a Abbott dinner where they discuss the whole, and the conversation is about how this all has to do with the Abbott family. I gotta be honest, Tom, I'm reading the outline and I'm not remembering the scene at all.
I think this was the time that like Autumn, for the first time in a long time, got to actually sit down and have a home cooked meal, and they kind of talked about that a little bit. But like the scene eventually just gets to Autumn wanting to read the Bible because she likes to learn new things,
Amen.
Which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, she's seeking the truth. Good.
Cece's like all about it. She goes and gets like her father's Bible and tells her like, "Hey,"
she throws it at her.
Yeah, throws it at her. She grabs it right out of the air like a champ.
Yeah, hits her in the face.
So yeah, like they're having an interesting conversation, and it's, I don't know, like there's some more kind of happens to it before we get to kind of Autumn's final little Bible reading. But yeah, it was just essentially a nice little lovely family dinner.
Yep, yep. Not a family meeting, so there's no
Nope.
yelling. It's just a family dinner where everything's great, and then the Bible comes out, and they start to look at all the problematic verses and have those discussions. Okay, let's talk about Cece talking to Royal and confessing to him some stuff that she did not share. We'll call these her West Pasture holes, where she says she threatened Rebecca, and this caused Rebecca to leave because she was having an affair with Lewis Mays, who is the Sweat Lodge guy.
Yes.
And
did you find this satisfying? Like, just to be able to say that she left him just because it was like an affair? Because it was like such a big mystery in the first season. And like second season, oh yeah, she was just having an affair, so she left. Like it wasn't.
No, although I think that's most of life. Like we spend a lot of time looking deep into conspiracies of things, and it can typically be chalked up to incompetence or like normal human like mistakes. But no, I agree with you. I thought this was, if this is truly why Rebecca left and why we couldn't find her, I think it's a little bit lame. Also, I like to think that Lewis Mays really had a business going with the ladies in the Sweat Lodge, where he's
crushing it.
Listen, here's some peyote. We're gonna go into the Sweat Lodge. You're gonna see some visions. And also, it's going to be warm in there, so everyone like wear clothing that you can lose. And Lewis seems a little bit like a creep, if I'm being honest. But so that'll show you Rebecca's taste. Rebecca's taste is Sad Sack Perry and Lewis Mays, the Sweat Lodge creeper. So, anyways,
She has a type.
No, she has a type. Oh no! Oh no! All right, speaking of types, the Bible has type in it, which are letters that make words. And Autumn is reading the Bible, and she's flipping through those pages. She really didn't start at the beginning. She just kind of dove into the middle.
Yeah.
So she's reading a lot about the history of Israel, that's for sure.
Well, and like with all of the aha moments or big twists or things that kind of happen, I thought this was kind of, I don't know where to take this, because she reads like that "do unto others as others do unto you" kind of line, and says like, yeah, I don't know if she's going to use this to justify her next moves, but I thought it was a little bit anticlimactic of a cliffhanger for this episode.
Sure. Now, as a guy that loves to pause TV shows when the written word's on, how much Bible reading did you do during this episode, Tom?
I admittedly did not pause.
Yeah, you were like, oh, it's the Bible. I'm not going to pause and read that.
Been there, done that.
Julian's tried. It hasn't worked. Let's move on.
That's what I said. He said, "do unto others." I'm like, oh, Julian's already done it.
Oh man. Okay, Tom. Listen, I'm enjoying the show. The big questions for me is just whether or not we're going to get the people back to the timelines that they like should be in. And
do you think we're going to get to the future timeline we saw in season 1, where Royal jumps into the hole? There's all those lights on him. The timer's counting down. Autumn's there with all of her yellow-coated crew. Like, do you think we're going to get there in this season, or do you think we're going to like lay the seeds for it and then maybe not get to it?
I don't know. That's the issue with knowing they didn't get a season 3. But once again, the show was not popular enough. You'd have to have a lot of like, I'm going to say arrogance to be like, hey, no one watched our show, but we're definitely going to get 3 seasons. So I would. But also, like, from a business perspective, as a show writer, are you just kind of like, hey, we're going to write 2, like we're going to get 3, and so that they can't cancel us? Or are you used to modern studios where nothing is guaranteed and they're probably going to cancel you? So, I mean, they've got to spend all that money making terrible Lord of the Rings shows on Amazon. So, I don't know. I hope we do. I hope we get some sort of a bow, even if it's not a full, like, the creator's vision bow wrapped up. I hope we get some of it. But we're also only on episode 2, and we've moved pretty quickly. So
Yes,
there's a
agreed.
lot that can happen in the next several episodes that will bring me satisfaction. And honestly, I love a show that, like, I can't predict. I don't know what they're going to
Right.
do. It's not like formulaic. Once again, watching Presumed Innocence, having read the book and watched the movie that it's based on, there might be some twists in there, but it's all pretty. It's a legal drama. We've seen it all before. This show, there's some stuff in here I have not seen before, and I am
Yeah.
enjoying it immensely. So,
And
no
just to bear in mind
complaints from me.
too, this season 2 we do only have 7 episodes, so it is a shorter
A
season.
biblical number, 7.
Yes.
Good,
Yeah.
good. All the other
7
numbers
little
are also
chipmunks.
biblical because they use them in the chapters and verses. But 7, definitely more biblical than the other numbers. A lot of biblical talk tonight, Tom. Are you feeling okay?
Yeah, 7's a magic number, not 6. 7. 7 little chipmunks sitting on a branch eating a lot of sunflowers on my uncle's ranch. You know that
Oh.
old children's rhyme.
Sure. Yeah. I'm more familiar with the Agatha Christie Little Indians.
And then there were 7.
Yeah,
Yes.
there were none. Oh, no. All right. For those of you that are still listening, we apologize. You can reach out to us. We'd love to hear people's theories. We will obviously talk about them on air during this radio show. While you're stuck in traffic, you can reach out to us at teambingepodcast@gmail.com. If you enjoy us, you can rate and review us at Apple Podcast or Spotify, those types of things. If you don't like us, just mosey on out of Wabang and don't listen to us anymore. Tom, I'm sure if you have tweets about hummus, you can join us on Twitter, formerly
Hashtag
known
hummus
as
talk.
X. There's a lot of hummus talk. Hummus has been very important in my life recently because I don't have to explain why it's important. Everyone knows why hummus is important. Tom, what did I miss?
Follow us on the socials at Twitter and Instagram at Team Binge or at Team Binge Podcast. And again, if you, like Julia mentioned, if you have some time, we have a handful of reviews on the Apple, but we know there's some people out there that haven't reviewed us yet, and you know you love us, so give us a 5-star review and write something fun.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I'm looking at you, Mel. Thank you.
Shots fired. I love it.
No, but yeah, good conversation. I'm very, very much enjoying the show, and yeah, man, bring on number 3.
I'm ready. All right. For Team Binge, I've been Julian.
That I have been Cowboy Tom. Yeehaw, everybody.